We're going to transition right now. We're going to go into our conversation. Cam Jordan, veteran who showed no sign of stopping for the New Orleans Saints. He keeps being impossible to block consistently. We met up with him at the hotel that the New Orleans Saints were staying in Costa Mesa, California, out for a preseason game and joint practices against the Chargers. And here's my conversation with Cam Jordan. Peter King in training camp with the New Orleans Saints. I'm very happy, actually, that I'm not in New Orleans because it's about 140 degrees right now. We're talking to Cam Jordan of the Saints here in Newport Beach, California. It's kind of a lovely morning, a little bit overcast, but about 30 degrees cooler than it would be in New Orleans right now. How you doing?
I'm good. More like a Seattle morning.
Yes,
and
it is, isn't it?
It becomes a California day.
Yeah. You're very used to those. You went to Cal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before we start talking about the New Orleans Saints and about Cam Jordan, I have to give you an idea that a Stanford man had yesterday. You're going to hate this, aren't you?
It's not going to be good.
Mr. Cal. But here's the idea. Christian McCaffrey, I said, what do you think about what's happened to the Pac-10,
right.
Pac-12, whatever? He was totally disgusted.
Right.
And he goes, I think a good solution would be to put Cal, Stanford, Northwestern, Duke, Vanderbilt, SMU, schools like that in a conference and just have that be football only and have that be a football conference because those are like schools. What, A, is your reaction to the Pac-12 getting totally blown up? And B, what do you think a solution is?
The Pac. Luckily, I left before it even became the Pac-12. It was Pac-10, so I never really recognized Utah or Colorado being a part of our situation. Yeah. And they left anyways, along with six other schools.
Yeah.
So you figure this Final Four. The solution that he presented, I'm only going to counter that just because he's a Stanford guy. It sounds like it's creating a very pretentious elitism type conference. I don't know if I agree to it, especially with all that private money flowing throughout Stanford and the likes of SMU versus a Northwestern and a Cal. I can see where he's coming from, and it sounds decent. But just because he's a Stanford guy, again, I'm just going to be the opposite of it. I'm more averse to somewhere in there just creating like a West Coast conference, just for travel sakes. You know, I think that possibly like if you absorb Boise State, maybe pulled in San Diego State, and sort of went along the routes of, Fresno State. Like just start amassing everybody on the West Coast and make it sort of just, an easy travel situation for those kids that love being on the West Coast, want to stay in the West Coast and play, and let their parents travel too. But like I said, I'm thinking of the people.
Do you think it's just ridiculous that the soccer team at USC or whatever has to go 3,000 miles to play a soccer game in front of 200 people at Rutgers or whatever it is?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I was just thinking from the school's perspective of being a student athlete, you're now leaving days in advance, and some schools, it's going to be tough to move those tests around. It's going to be tough to try and study on the road. Now it's not a quick, leave Friday night, come back Saturday night. It's a leave Thursday and come back Saturday, so hopefully Saturday night, but really it's Sunday morning. Kids' sleep schedule's going to be off just traveling alone. It's not like a 1 or 2 time thing. It's a every other week or whatever you have to travel.
I think the big surprise is that these schools have not thought of the students.
It's not a big surprise. Big biz is going big biz,
Yeah.
It's at some point, especially in this landscape now, it's dollar signs over feelings.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to Cam Jordan. So I think one of the really interesting things about your career is that you've played your career largely on artificial turf. And you've only missed 2 games in 12 seasons. Think about that.
Did artificial turf have anything to do with those games?
I don't know.
Oh.
But I'm just asking, whatever. It wouldn't matter if you were playing on pillows.
Mm-hmm.
My whole point is, how in the world do you play 12 years at a position where you're getting beat up,
Where I'm beating people up.
and you're also beating people
There
up?
we go.
But you have played, I think, now 203 games total, including playoffs, and you've only missed 2.
Right?
How does that happen?
I'm upset about the missing 2 part. One was from COVID, and I felt fine the entire week. Had like a negative test like twice within that week. I just couldn't give them back to back. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, "Hey, if you got COVID, you can go play now." And I was like, "Wait, I was just outside of it." And then last year, I broke a orbital bone. Had an orbital bone fracture in the left eye. Did it at the Pittsburgh game. Played another half on it. So like, it's not that serious. Maybe it is. We'll talk about it later on in life.
Yeah.
But missed that game. Got held out that game, and I was like, no, I can play. Just is what it is. I've been lucky. I've been blessed. A lot of great things have gone my way. Being drafted to the New Orleans Saints, I try and tell people I get 9 games guaranteed of perfect conditions. The artificial turf, great. It's going to be 70 degrees inside the dome. The lights are always going to be bright. You don't have to worry about wind. I keep saying dumb elements, but dumb elements like the game we played in Cleveland when it's negative 20-something. It was the dumbest game I've ever played in my life. Midwest people always talk about like real football when the snow comes. That's because they have to. They have to say something to bolster their confidence. I was born in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I left when I was 4. Went back when I was like 10 or 11.
I thought you were born in Chandler, Arizona.
No, I'm from Chandler.
Okay, all right.
Pops played for the Vikings for 13 years, and so all the kids
Steve
were born.
Jordan, the former tight end.
6-time Pro Bowl.
Okay, was Steve Jordan as durable as you? Did he miss games?
I don't know. I'd like to say he missed a few.
Yeah.
He missed a few. But, just thinking about it, like, we left when I was 4, and right around 10, we were like, we want a white Christmas. Went back for a white Christmas. I was like, hey, if we never have a white Christmas again, we're all okay. Snow is overrated.
You had one. One's plenty.
Yeah, one is more than enough. It's in the memories, and I was like, wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
So, I'm in love with New Orleans. I'm in love with Arizona. I'm in love with Florida weather.
Yeah.
Anything beyond, October, November, December, anything north of, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah. Okay. Who would you say have you learned something from about longevity and about continuing to play well into your 30s?
I'd say rest in peace to the great Chris Dolman, Minnesota Vikings legend, of course. Guys like him, John Randall.
But, I mean, give me something that they either told you or you read that you learned about that person.
Chris Dolman, we were in a hallway of a hotel during one of these Super Bowls, probably about 7 years ago, and we were talking about a cross chop and how to incorporate it into a jab step or whatever. And I was like, well, how did you play so long? And the greatest thing was, he was like, it's not about how long you played. It's about focusing and trying to get some aspect of your game better each year. So you don't really see the years. You just say, hey, I'm trying to get better here, trying to get better here. And once you've hit that plateau of I'm no longer getting better, I'm either completing my form or I'm now slowing down, are you okay with it, or can you adjust?
So let's translate that into give me an idea for 2023. What do you think you'll be better at this year in your game?
Transitioning through the play action passes. Because more times than not, I'm trying to headbutt somebody.
Explain that. Explain exactly what you mean by that.
Of course, in a play action, you're going to catch a run look from an offensive lineman. Offensive lineman, of course, being some slovenly figure that they deem that has good feet, but it's not really good. It's just
some slovenly figure, said the Cal guy.
That goes through his motions, and he's trying to sell you this idea that it's going to be a run play. I enjoy it because I look for contact, and I try and tell people, there's a lot of edge rushers in this world. I'm a run defender first, and then I'm a edge rusher, if you will. I'm a complete defensive end, and there's not too many of us left in this league. So I'm looking for the run. I'm looking for contact, and then it's like, oh, there's a pass, and it takes me down by half a step. So just being able to know tendencies, being able to realize formations, you can speed yourself up that much more.
Interesting. I didn't know. It seems to me you really have to react quickly. Mm-hmm. So when you are thinking you're playing a run play,
do you have to have it in the back of your head? This might be play action.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But that goes along with a little bit of film study, the pre-snap recognitions, and maybe if you know your guy well enough, you know what he does. I've become more averse to not caring about offensive linemen anymore. Just probably as like an entity, not so much as people. I think they're great people. They're like quarterbacks. You're really not going to meet a bad person in terms of offensive linemen. They're really good people, really nice, big people. And they just happen to be big, so they were forced to play this position.
Yeah.
I also have theories on why you become an offensive lineman. There's no one kid in my life other than probably like Nick Mangold that woke up and was like, I want to get punched in the chest. Like, ooh, I want to be an offensive lineman. Nobody has said that.
Okay, so
My vendetta on offensive linemen will always continue.
Yeah. All right. I really am curious about, and I've asked guys who've rushed against Brady over the years, when you would rush against Tom Brady, did you wake up on Sunday morning saying, I really want to get this guy?
No.
No?
No, you wake up knowing you're going to be frustrated.
Because he throws it away so often.
I mean, away, his accuracy's up there. I don't know if away is the right answer for that one. He's so well put together. His game plan has been so phenomenal over his entire career. There's a reason why he's as efficient as he is. Been to 11 Super Bowls, won 7 of them, or whatever that number is.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because you're like, I could win 99% of these reps, and 98% of them are not going to get even close to him.
Yeah.
And that 1% you do get close, you're like, I got to make this count.
Yeah. Did you ever get him?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
A few times. He was sack number 99 and 100 for me.
Wow.
Right.
Did you tell him?
I did.
You did?
I did.
What'd you say?
I said, let me get that jersey, but we also beat them 9-0, so I didn't get that jersey. I'm not saying I harbored it, but I may have harbored it. Well, talk about it years from now.
You may have harbored it? What does that mean?
I mean,
you may have borrowed it?
No, harbored, like the ill emotions I felt,
Oh,
put
I
into
see.
a heart, and
I see.
maybe it's still there. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when I'm older and retired and formulate these feelings that have been in the heart.
Okay. 115 and a half sacks in your career.
Woo.
What's your favorite one?
The next one?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh.
But don't you have a sack that you look back on and say, that is the greatest play I ever made?
Yeah, somewhere in practice about 6 years ago, I hit Drew Brees, and I was like, I've been meaning to do that. And I had to act like I was sorry. I was like, my bad, Drew. But I meant it. I meant all of it.
You wanted it.
Absolutely. Like, quarterbacks live a great life. They
Yeah.
get hit on Sundays. Their bodies feel phenomenal Monday through Saturday. And if a quarterback hits the ground 7 times, somebody gets fired.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in one practice, I probably hit somebody 20 times and get hit 30 times.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little jealous.
I want to ask you one kind of serious question. The New York Times wrote a story this offseason, Ken Belson, about how it isn't just the big hits that cause head trauma and then later CTE. It is the cumulative blows, hit after hit after hit.
Stacking
you may
punches.
not even feel bad after getting hit in the head and say, boy, got away with one there. But even though maybe you didn't feel concussed, that just adds to what ends up happening to you in life. And I wonder, how much of a consideration does that play in having you determine whether you want to keep playing football?
When you start playing football at 13 years old, you don't hear, 21 years ago, you didn't hear too much about like CTE, the adverse effects of these concussion protocols, or if there even was a real concussion protocol. That was at a time where you've talked to athletes long enough, you'd be like, oh no, my bell just got rung a little bit.
Yeah.
And you'd go back and play. That was probably the last era of Warriors, and I don't know if that's a good thing,
Right.
How many guys have passed away from CTE, brain damage, or just at 34 years old, I've had, a previous teammate of mine and Paris Harrelson not wake up.
Yeah.
You don't know what to attribute that to.
And you see Steve Gleason, and there are others. Yeah.
Of course. Heck, even if if you're just talking about just injuries alone, that just can get real traumatic in terms of how you feel about this game. But it's also one of those things that you realize, and I feel like because we're young, you sort of look at mortality like it's everlasting, and you're like, yo, it's not going to happen to me, and you're able to live off that. But at the same time, there's clear science now that proves that all this will come back. You're just hoping at some level it's going to be okay. It's at the forefront of the mind, and at the same time, there's mental checks. There's, again, that's the whole point of keeping your body right, keeping you don't let your mind wander. You're always picking up the other avenues. The busier you can have your mind, the more things you can formulate, the better, hopefully, in the long run.
Are you for instance, are you like a crossword puzzle guy?
Jesus, no.
Or are you like a puzzle, or what? Do you do any things other than that you would consider like brain activities, helpful brain activities?
I mean, in my mind, I'm always trying to learn, so I'm always reading on something.
Yeah.
And like, just had a call yesterday. I was like, hey, I ran across this, this little situation. I was like, I want to know more about it. And just the idea of learning, whatever aspect of it is, as long as you're continuing learning, I feel like you're making your brain active. Now, in terms of that, I'm sure there's science that says, hey, guys that do crossword puzzles live exponentially longer than guys who just draw cartoons and scribble in their notebooks. But as long as you're doing something, I feel like that mental activity is going to push through.
Yeah. I've often thought, Bruce Smith a long time ago said, every Sunday for me it's like 60 separate car accidents. And I said, well, geez, why do you do it? When you're 55, you're going to wake up and everything's going to hurt. And he goes, kind of taking care of 17 people. He had a lot of people who he was helping provide for, not totally. And does anything other than the love of football matter to you now when you determine how much more you want to play?
No. I think this contract was the first contract that I went home before even I was like, hey, went to the wife. I was like, hey, baby, how do you feel about extending more? She's like,
2 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, how long? I was like, 2 or 3. And she's like, well, how do you feel about it? I was like, I'm good. And she's like, all right, well, that's what you want to do. Because at this point, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
Or else I'd probably be seeking a higher paying contract.
Who sounds exactly like you is Calais Campbell. Yeah. Said the exact same thing. I don't have to play. I want to play.
Right. I don't know how it's going to get. You get closer to season, or you get closer, to OTAs, season starting up, and you're hanging out with the fam, and you're tossing the kids up. And the closer you get to season, the farther these kids are getting thrown up in the air. You're like, all right, I need to start tossing around people my size, because this is like, I'm tossing my son, and he's like, I'm chucking him, and the throws are getting farther and farther away. Like, he's landing on the couch, and he's loving it. And in my mind, I'm like, I shouldn't be throwing my kid this far. But so as much as we wrestle, play around at the house, like, it's an outlet as well.
Yeah.
It's a soothing combat sport, if you shall.
Yeah. Okay, last thing. Tell me about your team, because I think everybody sort of looks at the Saints and saying, they really might be good. But there's this mystery about how good you'll be, in part because nobody really knows your division. Your division's bizarre. There's so much new in your division. Mm-hmm. How do you look at your team, and how do you look at the NFC South?
I mean, there's always going to be people that have opinions, right? Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl last year. They're already, there's already doubts that they can have a playoff run this year. What are we talking about? It doesn't matter if you think if you're high on the Saints, if you're low on the Saints. It doesn't matter what anybody outside of what the Saints locker room and the Saints players that are going to be part of this 53-man team are going to do, because it's really up to us. No matter if you say, hey, we're going to go 17-0, or if you say, hey, you're going to go 0-17, guess what that doesn't do? Help me make a play.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we have 53 guys. Well, we'll have 53 guys after preseason, as well as another 13 on practice squad. And we're going to have the same mentality of getting each other better every day. So when we get to the games should take care of themselves. Because as we all know, on Sundays, any given Sunday, you can see the best teams get beat by the worst teams, or the worst teams win against some of the better teams.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. What does matter is how have you created a culture in your locker room to survive these waves, because rarely does anybody go a perfect season.
Yeah.
So when you have these adverse situations, when you do lose these close nail biters, or when you do win the close nail biters, do you let it inflate your head? Do you let it depress you? Do you let it, do you let the emotions be involved? Or are you even kill and you're able to say, hey, even though we won, this is the solutions to winning by a larger margin? Or you say, hey, we lost. These are the ways we need to improve so we don't face this defeat again.
You know what I would think is really interesting, like if I were you, is thinking about playing against Bryce Young. The guy's 5'10". He was the first pick in the draft. That's how much this game has changed, that a 5'10" quarterback could be the first overall pick in a draft. Imagine.
What is Baker Mayfield?
I don't know, 6 feet?
No.
I don't know. 5'11". I don't know what he is. But, I mean, look at Bryce Young.
What is Kyler Murray?
Well,
That's
Kyler Murray's a little thicker.
But how tall is he?
He's the same size.
No,
Kyler Murray is the same size as Bryce Young.
They're not the same height.
I think they are.
I hear you. With his hair, yes.
Yeah, all right. But I'm saying Bryce Young, to be a 5'10" quarterback and to have a franchise say, you're our guy,
right.
That's how much this game has changed, like, since you entered it.
But did it change? Steve Young wasn't 6 feet.
Steve Young was about 6 feet tall.
About 6 feet is not 6 feet.
Yeah. But Bryce Young has got – wait until you see him across the line from you. I mean, I tower over this guy. So, I mean, it's just it's going to be an interesting deal.
Absolutely. It might work out to his favor.
Yeah.
When you think about going against a shorter quarterback and then you have a line that is 6'5", you know, the offensive tackle 6'5", the guard is 6'3", everybody's in these 6'2" to 6'6" ranges. You lose track of him. Now you're worried about where he's at.
Yeah.
And so you're rushing, one, against where you think he's going to be at, and two, I've lost him now, so now I have to retrace him. As a rusher, it gets frustrating when you're going against smaller guys and you have that change.
Yeah. Hey, Cam Jordan, have a fun year. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Much appreciated.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So my thanks to Cam Jordan. I've always really enjoyed conversations with him because, as you could tell, we could have talked about the dissolution of the Pac-12 for 20 minutes. We could have talked about, life in New Orleans post-Katrina 15 years. He's just a fascinating, bright, and compelling figure in football. And I think he's done some of it. I think he's going to do a heck of a job on television for as long as he wants to do it. But again, you listen to him, he's not going to stop playing anytime soon. I don't think anyway, but anyway, we'll see. And that was Cam Jordan.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.